Hello, I'd like to pick up a few comments, and the first one is uh, Boris Johnson, the worst Prime Minister ever. Absolutely not. The worst Prime Minister ever was Liz Truss. I don't think that's even questionable. And Dylan-esque says, my heart bleeds for Yaxley. Imagine complaining about having your holiday ruined all the while, ignoring the lives you'd ruined as a consequence of your toxic talk. The man is cold and heartless. I entirely agree. And then Dougalbird says, what exactly did Tommy Robinson do? And that, I think, is a fascinating question. The reality is, I don't think he did anything. And that's the problem. In exactly the same way as I don't think Farage particularly did anything, and that's the problem. And equally, Andrew Tate didn't really do anything. That's the problem. All of these three have their own particular base, and all three of them could have called off the animals, but they didn't. They said the bare minimum to engineer, to incite a riot. Now, they may not be held responsible. They may not even have intended what followed. But the fact was, they all had it within them to urge peace, to urge restraint, to urge unity and cohesion, and none of them did. Instead, all of them asked these little probing questions. All of them speared their thugs of war on with the little hints and pushes and nudges. And that was enough. And that, in my book, makes them culpable. Now, you will know if you've been following my feed that I have gone out of my way. I have bent over backwards to accommodate Tommy Robinson. Because I thought, really, Tommy Robinson is a vulnerable individual out of his depth in this big, big, sad world, and he's been in prison, he's done his time, and he's constantly pursued by the forces of law and order in their huge numbers. Don't they have something better to do? Well, yes, they do have something better to do, but in the end, Tommy Robinson is more interested in keeping his name going, keeping his brand going, and he's not interested in the responsibility that he could be exerting. Now, I think the police obsession, the media obsession, the legal obsession with Tommy Robinson has, in fact, inflated his importance well beyond what it should have been. I think a similar thing has happened to Andrew Tate. In the case of Mr. Farage, I'm sure he's inflated his own importance quite satisfactorily on his own. He didn't need the media or the courts to do it. Of the three, who is the most intelligent? Because this is also a question. Clearly Andrew Tate. Clearly, by a mile. Does he do anything valuable with that intelligence? No. As for Farage, is Farage highly intelligent? He is highly motivated, and he has mastered his little sphere of influence. He can talk for hours about Brexit and anything linked to Brexit, but take him away from that little subject, and he's fairly useless. He is a master of one particular topic, and be in no doubt about his mastery and his skill. Added to which, I know he has a great interest in military history. Beyond that, I doubt that there's very much there. As for Tommy Robinson, he's a very sweet version of the pub bore. But let's face it, he really is a bore. And I'm sorry, because I've tried to give him room, I've tried to give him credence, I've gone out of my way. Farage, I would do the same thing. I would try to give him the space to do right. And I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and he can't. Because in the end, the first person in his life is Farage. And Piers Morgan, I think, got it right. The thing that offends Piers Morgan, and of course Piers Morgan is another person, another toughie. But Piers Morgan with Andrew Tate said what he was most upset about was how Andrew Tate, Farage, Tommy Robinson, and whoever else in the far right camp has hijacked this story to the exclusion of the 3 little girls who were murdered by the mad individual. And what drove that individual to do that deed, God knows. I don't suppose we will ever find out. There will be a court case, there will be reasons given, there will be some sort of explanation. But in the end, I think this was an act of madness. And so many people have paid the price because of that. And our first thought should be for those 3 little girls and their families and that community. But the first thought of Farage, Tate, and Robinson, and Elon Musk, is for the effect they can have on the narrative. And for that, they should be publicly excoriated. And a close second, of course, is Boris Johnson, who wants to talk about 2-tier policing. He wants to exploit the slogans and the nonsense going around. And he has a responsibility as an ex-Prime Minister. No. I think Tommy Robinson has made a major misstep, but I think part of that is because he doesn't have people around him to advise him. I think probably the same thing is true of Andrew Tate. Elon Musk has people around him to advise him, but he doesn't take notice. These are 4 egocentric fools, and their egocentricity and their self-obsession, their stupidity has got the better of them. There's a wonderful word, effendi, which has found its way into modern Turkish, and you would generally put the effendi, the title sir or whatever, at the end of the name, but it comes from the Greek. You find it in Arabic and as well, but it comes from Greek. And in fact, if I'm right, am I right? There was an Albanian ruler in Egypt who was so taken with oranges, he grew oranges in Egypt, and they bear the name Effendi, or they bear his name to this day. I think the same link takes you to Lebanon as well. But Effendi comes from Aphentis, and Aphentis comes from authentis or authentis, which gives us the word authentic, but in Greek gives the word it gives us the word authority. It's the person in charge, and that is really why being authentic, being yourself, is an essential part of being in charge. Finding within yourself the true self that can be a leader, and most of us have it, and hijacking some other cause to achieve success is the way to stupidity. Now, Tommy Robinson has done this. I think Andrew Tate has done it. And I think Farage has done it. And Boris has certainly done it. Boris took a decision. And not the red pill or the blue pill, but for Brexit or against Brexit. I've written 2 articles. Which one shall I publish? As the as the Templar knight said at the end of Indiana Jones, he made a foolish choice. He made a foolish choice because that was not the authentic Boris. And I am absolutely convinced in people's innate goodness. And when people choose something, they choose the quick route. They choose the inauthentic self. They lose real authority. And they lose themselves. Idiotico. That's also got another meaning, of course, in modern English, to be an idiot. But in Greek it means to be yourself, to be individual, to be unique. And we all have that calling too. And when we move away from that calling to be part of the crowd, I'm afraid that is when we truly become idiots. And that we saw in the riots. To find authenticity, maybe it's a lifetime's commitment to looking for what makes me an individual, what drives me, and what gives me leadership and authority. But you don't get authority without authenticity. And I know people talk about reality TV and talk about people not being authentic on reality TV. TV does show authenticity rather well. And a lack of authenticity, a lack of truth, a lack of honesty, a lack of personal integrity. Eventually, it's exposed. It takes time. Somebody asked me, how do you know if somebody is catfishing? You just wait. Because in the end, they make a mistake. And I think following these riots, we've seen 4 people: Boris, Elon Musk, Farage, Tommy Robinson, and Andrew Tate. Is that 4 people? Is that 5? They have made major mistakes, and they have exposed their own stupidity. They have become their own inauthentic self. They have become idiots. They are exposed as idiots in the modern sense, as opposed to the authentic sense.